Hey everybody, it's your host, Joel Rosario, host of Sessions and Lessons Unscripted. And today we're just gonna get right into it. The For those of you that have been listening to the podcast, first of all, thank you. Appreciate that. Gloria and I appreciate you listening and following and all that stuff, right, Gloria?
Absolutely.
Uh for those of you that listen, you know that Gloria is her day job is she's a caregiver. She used to be a nurse assistant. She's been in the medical field for a while. And one of her clients was her grandmother. And her grandmother a couple weeks ago, 2, 3 weeks ago, maybe got pretty ill. I mean, it was a regular occurrence for her to go to the hospital, and she always pulled through. She was super tough. They would always jokingly say that she outlive everybody. But about a week ago or so, her grandmother was very ill. It looked like she was gonna bounce back once again, and she did not. So she unfortunately passed away, and the funeral was last week, and so yeah, I mean, things have been a little bit crazy around here. Uh, of course, we're still posting and doing podcasts, and admittedly, and we've even discussed it before that we do pre-tape, pre-tape. That's showing my age, right? We do pre-record most of the podcasts, so if you're listening to them and they sound a little off or the timing's off, but yeah, her grandmother did pass away, and of course we're very sad for that, and condolences and thoughts go out to the family. And yeah, Gloria's here now, and she just wanted to share some stuff. Yeah, she just wanted to, kind of talk about grandma a little bit and just kind of reminisce a little bit and just focus on all the positive stuff. And so, I mean, Gloria, go ahead. Your floor is yours.
I've been kind of postponing this episode for a while just cuz it's been a lot to go through. It's been a lot to process and it's just hard. Being with someone for so long. I was with her for 14 years, taking care of her. Um so I haven't been myself lately. I guess I'm just still trying to figure life out. Um, I don't know. I don't even know why I'm doing this episode. You know, I
And
guess
I told Gloria she didn't have to do this, but she really wanted to kind of get everything out there. And she's being very brave, uh, jumping on here. And yeah, I mean, you really didn't have to.
I don't know. I think I kind of need to do it just to kind of, well, first off, just give my grandmother her respects. Um, she was 89.
Mhm.
You know, that's that's excuse me, guys. I'm gonna try to get through this without freaking out, but she was 89 years old. She had a long, long life.
Thanks to you.
You know, um, it was hard in the beginning when my grandmother got diagnosed with Alzheimer's,
This was 14 years ago, right?
a little bit over 14.
Hmm.
Um,
And this was soon after your grandfather passed, right?
uh, I want to say it was my timing is so off right now. Um, I noticed it right away. Uh,
But everyone kind of doubted it, didn't they?
Well, in the beginning, yes, and I understand. I mean, nobody wants to accept that,
Well, I mean,
their mom,
plus you're kind of a few degrees or
short of a
few,
medical.
yeah, a few credits short of a medical degree.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, but at that point,
Well, you've been around long enough to know.
yeah, well, at that point, I had already been working professionally with people with Alzheimer's and dementia and other mental illnesses. I had at that point, I think I had been working for I want to say 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
So the exposure was there.
Well, you were already experienced.
Yeah, I had already experienced, people with Alzheimer's and dementia and the beginning stages, and
Right.
I'd been around the block a
Right.
few times at that point. And it was hard, in the beginning because I've talked about my grandmother in the past. She was a very, very, very strong person. She was my grandfather's helper, on the farm. They had animals, they had land, they had tractors, they had dogs and cats and
Right.
a farm basically.
Mhm.
And you know, I in the beginning when my grandmother was diagnosed, it was just me stopping by, you know, maybe once or twice throughout the day just to check on her and just to make sure that she'd eaten, taken her meds,
Right.
keep hung out with her for a little bit, and then I would just go on about my day, go to my regular job, and just it was like that for a while.
Mhm.
But then it got to the point where my grandmother couldn't be left alone anymore.
Right.
I guess there was this one time when
So at this point, she was living on her own. Or,
no, she was living with my mom at this point.
okay.
She had lived in Georgia
But your mother was working, so she was unsupervised.
right. So that's why I would stop by throughout the day. And this was before we got like the agencies involved and
Right.
the insurance and all that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so when one day I happened to be off of work and it wasn't my turn to go because I would switch off occasionally with one of my aunts
Oh,
and they would go so I can have like the day off or whatever.
I.
But that morning I woke up and just something bothered me. I just didn't feel right. I was like, I'm gonna go hang out with grandma, just in case.
Mhm.
And I showed up at the house and she had gotten hungry. So she put a potato to cook on the stove,
Uh-huh.
but she didn't put any water to boil the potato. So she basically just grabbed a pot and put a potato in there and turned on the stove.
Okay.
So when I got there, I panicked because I opened the door and whoosh,
Smoke.
all this smoke was just,
Mm.
and my grandmother was sitting in the living room just watching TV like nothing. And I was so scared. I was like, Grandma, don't you smell that? It's burning.
Alright.
She's like, I didn't do that.
Well,
I was like, Grandma, you're the only one here. Like, who else could have done this? Maybe your mom forgot. I was like, I highly doubt that. So, I got my grandmother outside. I opened the windows and, I was freaking out. I would kind my aunts. And, you know, from then on, we decided, well, we need help taking care of grandma.
right.
So she was staying with my mom. It was a lot of responsibility on my mom at that point. My mom worked full time. This was way before my mom retired. Well, this was about 14-ish years ago.
Right.
About.
Uh-huh.
And I was this no, this is crazy. We can't leave her by herself anymore. Um, so we were trying to figure out what to do and
Well, I would assume soon after you guys had her diagnosed by a doctor.
yeah, that's when everything started.
Or did you guys kind of.
At that point, she had an appointment to go. They haven't had like the actual diagnosis, but I was like, obviously, if she's leaving potatoes on the stove, you know, she needs help. She can't be left alone. So that's where I stepped in. She was living with my mom. And I wanted to help my mom out because it was a lot for my mom.
Uh-huh.
So I stepped in, and in the beginning, we had no agency. It was just me and my mom.
Right.
You know, I had no schedules. I would just go throughout the day, just hang out with my grandma. And I would leave maybe like an hour before my mom got off of work.
Mm.
So my grandmother would lay down. She would take a nap during that time. My mom would come home and wake her up. Because once my grandma was down for a nap, like she would not get up for anything,
Right.
right? So it was okay to leave her for like that 45 minutes to an hour, maybe even less, But as time went on, I got more and more involved. We got the insurance involved, and I ended up just, getting hours with my grandmother. And
She became a client.
well, I don't like to call her a client, but yes, technically she
Yeah,
was.
saying officially, I mean,
Officially
yeah,
speaking on paperwork, yeah, she was a client.
right.
Um, I worked other jobs while I took care of my grandmother, but eventually, like, she needed more help as time went on.
And your mother was working at the
Yeah, my
time.
mom was
Your
very
aunts were working.
well. They weren't necessarily working, but they were busy with their businesses and stuff, and just yeah, my uncles have businesses, so um, I would rather take care of her than anybody else because hello, I had like more experience with everything, and I wasn't about to let a stranger come and take care of my grandmother. That was my biggest fear. Like, no, because to work in this field, especially taking care of people with dementia and Alzheimer's, you have to have compassion and you have to be a very easygoing person.
Well, I mean, it's understandable too with some of the horror stories that you hear.
Yeah, and it was like,
Yeah.
no, no, I
Yeah.
mean, no. I've worked in nursing homes, I've worked in facilities and hospitals. You know, I'm not going to talk about bad about the industry, but it's not as regulated as you would think.
All right.
So I was like, no, I will make it work. I will take care of her. Um, Long story short, I ended up just being with her more and more throughout the years, and here I am. um, Then, well, my mom got sick, last year at this point or almost 2 years ago.
Almost 2 years, maybe.
Yeah, at this point, almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, you're both your grandmother and your mother.
Yes, my mom had a stroke, and then, like, 3 or 4 days later, my grandmother had a stroke.
Yeah.
So they had a stroke back to back. My mom was in one hospital in one town, and my grandmother was in a different town hospital. So that was fun.
Yeah.
I had my work cut out for me because I had 2 people that severely needed me at that point.
Right.
So, you know how it went. I started spending less and less time at home and more time, with my mom
Of course.
and my grandma. And everything was going good. My mom has she's not 100%, but she's doing so much better than she was in the beginning. And my grandmother, she always had this spirit. She was a fighter. They're
Well,
both
like I said before, we'd always joke around that she was gonna outlive everyone.
she'd been to the hospital so many times.
Yeah, since I've known you.
Yeah,
Almost
every
year.
every year.
Yeah.
Every year she went to the hospital, and unfortunately, this was the last time.
Right.
We had hoped that she was gonna get better.
Which she was for a little while.
It was to this day I don't understand fully like what the hell happened. I really don't. I've gone through the scenarios in my head and it's I can't accept it, but it's reality. Um So my grandmother had been in the hospital. She went in because she had a fall and she was losing blood internally and they couldn't find it. It was such a small hole in her vein that they couldn't find the location, but it was significant enough to where my grandmother was losing a significant amount of blood.
Well, her pressure kept dropping.
Yeah, it was dropping and her red blood count uh kept going down. The average for a female or a male. Well, I think for a female, I'm just gonna give you the female stats because I'm not too sure, but the female red blood cell count should be at least um between at lowest 13 to 15 is considered normal.
Okay.
The first night we took my grandmother to the hospital, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, and we eventually found out what was wrong
Right.
and why her blood count kept going down.
But she was basically hemorrhaging.
She was slowly hemorrhaging, and it was so slow and so minute that they couldn't find where
Well, yeah.
it was
I mean,
coming
the
from.
human body, it could be anywhere.
Anywhere. And
Right.
my grandmother was 89 years old. It could have been anywhere.
Right.
It could have been in between her toes. Like her body was so fragile at this point
Yeah.
that it could have been anywhere. And because she was on Coumadin, which is a blood thinner, it made the situation even worse.
Well, it makes it very dangerous, right?
Yes, yes. It has such a small hole in your vein can take you out if you're on this medication.
Uh,
And, we started to worry, and the doctor said she's gonna need a blood transfusion, and then that's when I knew that my grandmother was probably gonna pass because, she's,
that's against their belief,
yeah,
having a blood transfusion.
yeah, so I knew off the bat, I was like, "We're just buying time with her," you know? Um,
And from what we were discussing, it seemed like the doctors were pretty straightforward with you and what was going on, right?
well, with me, yes, with my family, not so much. I had a rapport with the doctors. I was like, "Look, you guys don't have to sugarcoat anything for me. I'm like, I've been with her for 14 years, but I know there's something wrong." I was like, "If my grandmother breathes wrong, I know. If she blinks weird, I know."
Right.
You know? And they're like, "Well, we don't wanna make you guys lose hope." I was like, "I'm not looking for hope. I want, like, the truth.
Yeah. So
Tell
give
me
it
the
to me straight.
give it to me straight."
Yeah.
I was like, "Of course it's gonna hurt, but I need to start preparing my mom and, my family to kinda receive the news?"
Mhm.
And because I'm the one that was with her most of the time with the doctors, I had the relationship with the doctors.
Right.
And the doctor was like, "Okay." He's like, "Well, at this point, we've done all we can do. Like, they're not accepting a blood transfusion for her. She's too old to go to surgery, so we can do explorative surgery.
Mhm.
That's going to do more damage than
Well, yeah.
anything because, she's going to lose more blood."
Mhm.
They're like, "At this point, anything that we do is just buying you guys time with her. We recommend you guys taking her to a hospice and, just start planning for the end of life."
Right.
And I was like, "Okay."
They're basically telling you to make your life comfortable for
Right.
yeah.
So all of a sudden, her numbers went up.
Mm.
They decided to do an alternative treatment, I guess. I'm not going to get too much into it or too specific, but
It was a fairly new treatment or no?
it's not new, but it's not 100%. Like the doctor said, it might trick her body into producing more blood cells,
Okay.
but it's not a guarantee, right? So they gave her a mixture of whatever is in the blood, but through synthetically. So it's synthetic blood,
Okay.
and they gave her, I think, 8 treatments. So for 8 additional days, her numbers would go up, her blood count would go closer to, 6, and then 7, and then back to 5, and then
Oh.
9, and then 10. And we just thought, like, she's gonna get better, you know,
Right.
and you know, I think there was one more day left in her treatment. And I believe by the time that we were asked, well, not asked, but by the time we were released from the hospital, my grandmother was like, I think at 10,
Yeah, I think you said it was like 11, something like
11,
that.
10.
Yeah.
She was so close to being 15,
Right.
which is the magic numbers that we were looking for.
Right.
So our expectations were is that we were going to take her temporarily to this facility,
Right.
get her to the point where she can at least eat more. And I was gonna go back to taking care of her like regular,
Right.
and then work with her physically and,
But at this point, the treatments were done, right?
yeah,
There was
and
no more
everything was
treatment.
working. Everything
Okay.
was going great. And um
But after that eighth treatment, it was just supposed to like coast from there
yeah, it was supposed to keep going.
and keep going up.
And the
Right.
thing is that we asked them to perform a blood draw on my grandmother because we're like, okay, we need to come up with a care plan because it's either we leave her here in the facility, which we didn't want to keep her in the facility.
Sure.
We wanted her home.
Of
But we
course.
also didn't wanna take her home if she was gonna be miserable with us. We were just trying to make her comfortable, whatever that situation was. And excuse me. Um, they did the blood work, and it was, like, at a 14.
Mm. She was right there.
And she was right there, and she started perking up and talking and eating more. We started to have family come in from Mexico and from out, different states.
Right.
And everything was so good with my grandma. And then I remember, the day that she passed, I You know,
Now this was at the hospice now.
this is not the hospice. This was the last day that she was there,
Okay.
and um, as normal, I kind of got there, gave her breakfast, gave her lunch. I was hanging out. She was talking to me. Just normal day, like, and I had to. For some reason, I needed to come home. But I was debating. I was like, maybe I should stay a little bit longer until somebody else comes. But you get busy with life. But so I the aide came in to help me. Set my grandma up for the afternoon.
Right.
I washed her face, brushed her hair, made her presentable because, my family was gonna come a little bit after I left.
Right.
So I left her really presentable, you know, and as I was helping her change, this is the weirdest thing. I always bought my grandmother flowers all the time. And the flowers were like ugly. You know how the water gets murky and stuff? I was like, oh grandma, those flowers are so ugly. I was like, don't worry, tomorrow I'm gonna bring an even bigger bouquet. And she told me, don't worry about it, don't rush. I was like, okay, that's kind of a weird thing to say. So I left and I got a phone call to go back to the facility and I managed to talk to the nurse and he's like, I'm sorry, your grandmother passed. I don't think I've ever driven so fast to see her. And it was hard, nobody was expecting it because
You guys expected her to bounce back.
we wanted her to bounce back, but with the stroke and everything that she had gone through with the fall and just everything, it didn't her body was done, you know, and it sucks. Um, I guess I'm having a hard time like processing life, you know. Um, I can't fight myself, you know. Uh, this is hard, but I haven't been answering my phone calls. I'm just kind of like shut down, and you know, I appreciate everybody like reaching out and just calling me to see how I am and stuff. I'm not answering. I'm not ready to, you know, talk to anybody. At this point, I lost track of time. I think it's been like 3 weeks. Today is actually 3 weeks that she passed, and we had her funeral and everything. I'm so thankful that my family came together and was with her. You know, obviously not under the best of circumstances, but what can you do at this point? But I don't know. I guess I just feel lost. I'm so used to like being with her, and she's not here. And I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to deal with things as best as I can. Um, I think I'm gonna go have a council meeting or something with the grieving uh therapist, or I don't know what they're called. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of thank everybody for reaching out and just being supportive, text messages, calling, all that. I appreciate it. But I'm just not in a place right now where I want to be with people. And I hope you guys understand.
I'm sure they do.
Uh, but yeah, I'm just I guess I'm happy that I at least got to be with her for as long as I did. My grandma used to tell me stories that like some other people haven't heard, or just I'm so glad that I got to experience that with her. And just I don't know what else to say at this point. I'm trying to keep it together, but it's been hard. So, yeah, I guess I just wanted to thank everybody and just, you know, catch everybody up on what's going on. It might be a little bit out of order. Um, like we said, we kind of pre-record, which is a good and a bad thing at the same time because sometimes, the episodes aren't gonna all match or anything, but yeah. So, um, I guess that's it. I just wanted to thank everybody and just, you know, make it official. If not, I don't know. S-
Fine.
I'm fine. I'm trying.
Well, I just want to say a couple of things, and you know, your grandmother lived a long life, and I think you are, and I mentioned it before that you had a big part in that. You were there for a good 14-ish years. She she stuck around as long as she did because of your care, because of your love. So I'm sure that Abuelita is looking down and at you and smiling, and she appreciates it. I know it. I know she does. I know she loves you.
I mean, I guess, excuse me, guys. I'm, trying to keep it together, but um, it wasn't all bad. She was silly. Just she had this weird sense of humor that just came out at random times.
Uh,
And she had this smile that just kind of always used to like, if I was upset, and just something about her little smile with her buck teeth.
well, you said that she gave you a big smile before you left.
Yeah, yeah, that was the thing about my grandma. She was always smiling, you know. And I guess I'm happy that she's not in pain anymore. She doesn't suffer.
Man,
She at this point, when you have dementia and you have other medical issues, you're not living life anymore.
man.
So I guess it's like a release, and I don't want to say that I'm happy that she's gone because I'm not. You know, I feel her loss every day. You know, it was easy to kind of deal with for a while because my family, you know, was still here. And as they started to like leave and go back to their cities, states, and countries and all that,
Yeah,
it's kind of like I'm left by myself. Now it hits hard.
man.
But anyways, guys, thank you for listening. Um, I guess we'll get back to normal. I'll find my new normal eventually.
Well, my love, I want you to know that I mean, everyone grieves differently, and you take as much time as you need. And I'm here, of course, for you. Shoulder to cry on, ears to listen. So I love you very much.
And I'm trying. I really am trying to, find my new normal. It's just like I said, it's fresh and yeah, I'm just kinda here.
And I know it sounds cliche, and I know when I was dealing with grief, it's not something you always want to hear, but uh, you know, it'll be better.
I know. And people ask me all the time, like, "Oh, how are you feeling? How are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I just lost a huge part of my life. Like, how do you think I'm doing?"
Right.
But I know people mean well.
Their hearts are in the
Their hearts are in the right place. It's just I'm not I'm having a hard time grieving and dealing with it. So I don't know how to like react to people, you know. But I'll figure it out. You know, um I keep wanting to wake up and just, being okay all of a sudden.
yeah.
But that's not how it works. So I'm gonna work on it. We're still gonna keep recording and stuff and I don't know. I'll update you guys in a couple months, weeks. But until then, I guess we'll just keep recording like normal.
And of course, we're here for you. So
I know. Thank you so much. You know, I want to thank people who showed up and like have been calling for real. Like it means a lot. And like I said, I'm avoiding calls and I'm not texting people.
yeah, I need your space.
I need my space at the moment.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you to you too, because you've been so supportive during this whole time.
Of course.
So yeah, that's the episode, I guess. Let's wrap it up.
All right. All right, guys. We're just gonna leave it there. So yeah. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to revisit the website and all that stuff. And I almost don't feel right even saying any of that stuff I normally say at the end.
It doesn't seem right. I know.
No. So I mean, we're just gonna leave it there, and
This whole episode is this big. I don't know what I'm doing. Just
that's fine. You're good.
swear it, guys. We'll talk to you guys later. We'll sign off like that.
All right. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye bye.